And now on the line is Anne O'Mahony, the International Programmes Director of Concern Worldwide. Anne, welcome to the programme.
Thank you very much indeed.
And I know you are retiring from Concern at the end of the month, and I read the feature article in the Irish Times about you recently, which was very good. And I would like to maybe come back to you again after you've retired to do a feature interview on you, looking back on your work with Concern to do it on Near FM. We're going to talk mainly today, though, about the impact that COVID is having on the countries in which Concern is working. Could you start off, Anne, by telling me how you would describe this last year for you and your colleagues in the countries in which you work? And then also tell us a bit about what you think next year has in store for the people you help.
I think, this year, like for many other people around the world, this year has been an exceptional year for Concern. We've had to change our ways of working. We have had to change how we interact with people, not just here in Ireland, but all around the world. We have seen, in the countries that we work in particular, I think the people that have been affected are people that couldn't get to work, where markets closed down. It wasn't so much the health aspect, and it wasn't so much the illness aspect of COVID that affected them, but it was the whole change in their economic circumstances. And I suppose for us, it's particularly how it has affected the poorest people in the countries that we work in. Small example, I think here in Ireland we have been able to pivot into doing Zoom education classes and all of that. For the poor that we work with, they have no connectivity, they have no access to the technology required for that, so therefore they have missed a whole year of education. And this for people who are trying desperately to climb out of poverty. This is a huge issue for them. I suppose some of the other stuff that's been involved, people have lost their jobs, markets have closed down, and for the people that we work with, if they don't earn money, they don't eat. So we have seen rise in debt levels. We have seen the level of hunger has escalated through this year, and next year is going to be even more difficult.
And I know you just said there that next year is going to be more difficult, but at the moment we in the Western world anyway, we have the rollout of the vaccine against COVID. This is good news, isn't it?
I think the vaccine is great news. And the vaccine is going to help things open up a little bit. But my big worry is that the countries that we work with and the people certainly that we work with will be at the end of the queue when vaccines are being doled out. Now, I know there's an international agreement called COVAX, but at the end of the day, these countries will be at the end. I was talking to some of my colleagues in Kenya the other day, and they were saying it'll be at least the third quarter of 2021 before there's any mass vaccination plan in most of these countries. So we're not looking at any quick fixes or any quick solutions here. And I suppose linked into that then, we've done quite a lot of research. We have talked to over 14,000 people across 23 countries to get their views on how they're being affected. And 90% of them see a huge impact on their lives on this.
I know that Oxfam are involved in the campaign for people's COVID vaccine. Are you in Concern also involved in advocating for this campaign?
What we're looking at is advocating at a country level to make sure that when the vaccines become available, that the people that we work with and the health services that are delivered in the areas that we work with are on the list and in queue to get the care and protection and support that's required.
And probably the worst news as regards COVID is, I believe, that because of the impact it's had this year, we could be facing a number of famines next year. That's true, isn't it?
I think we are seeing a significant increase in the level of hunger, and famine is the next stage on. I would hope, in my lifetime, I have worked through so many different famines, and I had hoped that we had seen the back of them. But COVID is going to tip so many countries and so many people into that awful circumstance of no food, of people dying from hunger. And that's an unforgivable tragedy, really, in this day and age.
Okay, and how much more money is needed to avert famines next year?
You know, it's a question of how long is a piece of string. From a concern perspective, we will hone in on the areas most in need in the countries that we're in. We'll work with the people that we can get at and the people that we can support to help them through this period. Already we're doing quite a lot of that. So there's a small bit done, but there's a huge amount more to do to try and avert this famine. We have been extremely lucky here in Concern in Ireland in the level of support that we have got from people. And that is so much appreciated. But we have a long road ahead in 2021 to try and claw back some of the gains that we have made in previous years. You know, we were making progress. We were having an impact as a global community on tackling poverty. And COVID has set us back years. It is a tragedy of global proportions.
Okay, and are you in any way confident that organisations like ourselves in Concern will be able to get the necessary increased funding?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, we keep talking about this problem, and I know people are at the pin of their collar in terms of looking at their own needs. But whatever about people's own needs, there's a huge amount out there who are just holding on by a thread. And these are the people that we want to support and we want to work with. And these are the people that we have to get support for. And it'll either come from, and it can come from a combination of different sources, from people in Ireland and from some of the governments that we try and get money out of to enable us to do the work on the ground. So, you know, I would hope that we will be able to do a lot, but, you know, we will continue to press to do more.
Okay, and you're retiring at the end of the month after, I believe, 38 years working with Concern. Looking back on your work over the last 38 years and the places you have been, how would you describe, this is a big question, how would you describe the evolution of the international humanitarian sector in the countries you work over the last 28 years? And can you tell me how you think the current situation with COVID compares to other crises you have seen in the past?
Well, I suppose one of the big things for me, and I suppose one of the things that Concern as an organisation is most proud of, is that we have changed the way severe hunger is being dealt with. If you go back to the big famines in Ethiopia in the early 80s and in Somalia in the early 90s, you saw huge levels of death. You saw these starving children across our television screens. We actually developed a method to change the way the whole international community deals with severe hunger in trying to take people out of centres, keep them in their homes and enable them to get the support that they require in their own houses to enable them to recover. So in my lifetime, I hope we would never see these dreadful pictures across our screen of big famine relief centres because of the type of work that Concern has done. So that for me is a huge change. I suppose the other big change, technology has brought huge options to us. And instead of doing food distributions around the place, we're now giving cash to enable people to buy what they actually need to feed their families. And technology has enabled us to do that through cash transfers using mobile phones. And again, that's an enormous change. It's more secure. It's better for the people that we work with. It's also hugely stimulating for the local markets that people are using that money in. So it has so many different good effects. And we were, I suppose, very much at the beginning of pioneering that in some of the countries that we're working in. So those are big, big changes.
Okay, and the situation with COVID over the last year, moving into next year, like how does that compare to other crises you've seen in the past, like on a scale of, are they on a similar scale? Like,
I think the biggest thing with COVID is that it has affected the whole world at the same time. And, you know, for every other disaster and famine and great need up to now, it has been in single areas or single regions, and we could get the world to pay attention to an area. But COVID, as you know, has affected everyone's life right across the world. So there's almost a sense of, well, we have to look after ourselves first before we can think outside to look after people further afield. And that has been the big change. You know, we've seen people in this part of the world lose their jobs. Now, for many who are from the parts of the world that we work in, it means there are no remittances to go back home. There's no support back to families that would normally have received that support from here. We have seen those same families at the other end of the scale lose their jobs, and we have seen all their various support structures get eroded all at the same time. So it pushes them over the edge from chronic poverty into severe destitution. And there's a long road back from there.
Okay, and it's great talking to you. Just to come towards the end of the interview, is there anything else you want to tell our listeners about concern coming into next year, and maybe a bit about yourself now that you're retiring soon?
I think, I suppose really, I have been very privileged and proud to work with Concern for so long. And it has made a great impact on me and on my life. And I think Concern is a good organisation. And for me personally, I will continue to support it financially, I think, for the rest of my life. But it has been a tremendous 38 years.